Okay, another nice day to do some flight tests. I'm going to be testing again whether or not the drone can survive per se with all the interference around the busy areas and maybe capture some more traffic with cars and trains. And with that in mind, what did I read today? How about this first one? More news about drones apparently disrupting airports. This one here says drones spotted over 4 Denmark airports causing temporary closures. Denmark said Thursday that drone flights over multiple airports this week were a hybrid attack designed to create fear, adding it would acquire new capabilities to detect and intercept drones. Police said drones flew over several airports across the country and caused one of them to close for hours after a similar incident early this week prompted Copenhagen Airport to shut down. The aim of this type of hybrid attack is to spread fear, create division, and frighten us, Denmark's Justice Minister Peter Hammergaard said. That's kind of interesting if that is true anyways, where it's literally just drones flying around certain spots because they know people will freak out about it. That makes me think too, you'd obviously need to find ways to deal with this, but at the same time, are people in general the problem too, where they're overreacting per se? Because in other situations in life, you just find ways to deal with it. I mean, a funny way to think about it is a lot of people are terrified of, let's just say, a rat or something like that. If they see it out in the open, correct? They'll hide, I don't know, behind trees, run indoors or something like that. And to that extent, it's a little bit overboard. Like when people just quote see a drone in general, they automatically think it's, I don't know, a lion or something like that, like it's out to kill them, or a big bear. They do go on to say Danish Defense Minister Troels Lund Poulsen told a press conference that there can be no doubt that everything points to this being the work of a professional actor when we are talking about such a systematic operation in so many locations at virtually the same time, but he underscored there was no direct military threat to Denmark. Well, again, you just gotta find ways to deal with those intrusions per se versus creating over-the-top regulations, fear-mongering it, and so forth. Because I guess this is kind of what could happen afterwards, where everybody is so terrified of this stuff. And when I thought in terms of flying drones, actually, as you guys know, there was recently all that buzz about DJI potentially misleading people, where their Mini 5 Pro drone weighs over 250 grams, for example. And as a result, in a lot of places, technically, it would be illegal to fly without, for example, registrations and all that, just like the bigger drones. So it's kind of interesting, as apparently some official bodies actually confirm that the little change in weight is actually fine. For example, in Europe, apparently the European Union Aviation Safety Agency actually verified that they have about a 3% tolerance in terms of the maximum takeoff, I guess, mass, in terms of qualifying the drone to be C0, which you guys seen, for example, even the one I opened here in Canada, it has that label, which should imply it's good to go. So in that case, I guess, for people in Europe, you're okay to fly this as a quote micro drone, which is good news. But how about here in Canada, for example? Some people are actually wondering, oh no, is this illegal though? Because this isn't Europe, the laws are completely different. Well, the interesting thing is apparently Transport Canada sounded like they were actually confused in some way, where they were kind of told, I suppose, by like DJI, this is a micro drone. So it's kind of registered as such, where that's basically how they see this. And with that though, they've apparently been getting tons of inquiry, as you would imagine, on whether or not this is okay to fly if people happen to have gotten a drone that's over, for example, the weight threshold. Because again, this isn't just a matter of, oh, whatever, just register it or whatever, start flying. There's so many different regulations for these categories of drones. Now, to my knowledge, currently, they're actually just going to let this go by, where they think the little bit of difference in weight, they're not going to bother with it. They're just going to treat it like a micro drone, as long as you're using, for example, the regular batteries and all that, not the plus ones. And what was interesting is some people were posting the same thing, so I thought this was kind of interesting to share too. Like this person here was talking to the civil aviation inspector, and he writes here in his message, wanted to shed some light on the Mini 5 and Transport Canada's official position with a DJI disclaimer. That's how, for example, as you noticed, they say it's 249.9 grams, but it could be plus or minus 4 grams. As you guys seen, for example, I got the lighter one, it seems like. It says the fear associated with this is not seen as an official MRPA as per Transport Canada legislation. After speaking with my inspector at Transport Canada, he has relayed the following message to me and has allowed me to share this. And he writes here to him, apparently anyways, it says, I got a response from the HQ section regarding the DJI Mini 5 maximum takeoff weight variation. If the operator is utilizing standard batteries, the plus minus 4 gram issue not considered to be a big issue at this time. So as what the guy says here anyways, what this means for the time being is that so as long as you do not use a high capacity battery and stick with the standard OEM batteries, Transport Canada will recognize the Mini 5 as a MRPA, so basically like a micro drone. And that's kind of interesting too, because one of you actually mentioned apparently people are finding variances with the batteries where the big difference in weight seems to be coming from. So this is kind of what I've been hearing so far, where it just seems like they're gonna just treat it as like a mini drone in general. Like they said for now, so who knows if they'll change it, but this is kind of a messy situation, huh? Especially for DJI, that doesn't sound very good. And it doesn't sound so good for Transport Canada too, where it seems like they're completely shocked, where the weight is actually over, it seems like, for a lot of people. And this makes me think, if you're going to regulate things like drones and all that, and you're worried about things like safety, you should actually focus more on making sure the hardware or whatever meets certain specifications to ensure that people buy it are using something that's safe or as advertised. I mean, to me, that makes more sense in terms of drone safety versus trying to restrict, for example, some guy flying, I don't know, a toy drone around a tree or something like that. It'll be interesting too to see if DJI actually ever responds to this, because that's not good optics, especially I guess with things like all that geopolitical stuff in the US. I can imagine more people saying, for example, this is an example how certain people, they can't trust the company and so forth. So will they actually say anything about this or address it, for example? And I was still reading a lot of news just about all that ostrich situation here in BC. It seems like it's going around the country and the world now, where everyone's paying attention. And while they're going through all that legal stuff, as you guys know, I guess, to stop it, and there's all that drama about RCMP drones and so forth, apparently one way that they're kind of trying to fight back to stop it is they're actually calling out all the companies that are actually supporting, let's just say, this operation. For example, companies that apparently have been renting fences and so forth, people have been shaming them, and those companies have actually been trying to block their logos by the looks of it. And there are some actually that completely backed out, like ones that rented their trucks, they actually got it back because they didn't want to be part of this, knowing that it could potentially, I guess, be extremely wrong when history looks back. But apparently there's an issue where they're saying these companies are being threatened and so forth. Like this one here says, police probe threats of violence aimed at businesses linked to BC Ostrich Cull. Businesses across British Columbia linked or thought to be associated with a planned cull of about 400 ostriches have been flooded with calls and emails with language intended to intimidate, the RCMP says. The birds have been spared for now, with an interim stay by the Supreme Court of Canada, but the Mounties say they are launching an investigation into escalating threats of violence against businesses who may or may not be helping the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. The agency ordered the cull after birds at Universal Ostrich Farms began dying of avian flu last December, but the farm fought it in court and on social media. That seems to be one of the things that's created the most impact to get attention in general. And so as they go on, companies are saying all the quote threats and so forth have skyrocketed since this has happened. For certain companies, you can see online reviews, they're being bombed, for example. But at the same time, from what I gather, apparently there are some companies that are completely innocent from this, but people just have that mob mentality right now, I suppose. And that's actually not good in that regards. So of course the argument is it doesn't matter which business is helping them. They say it should be their free choice and then your choice afterwards, I suppose, whether or not you want to support them. It's kind of interesting seeing this the other way around, because normally it's the complete opposite, where it's actually businesses that try to suppress, for example, let's just say the regular person or people they don't agree with, and they try to basically pressure people in that way to follow, I guess, a certain direction. For example, oh, if you ever speak out against this, we'll not give you money, we won't give you business. And so people just, for example, abide with things because they don't want to lose those opportunities. Whereas this one's like the complete opposite, where the regular people are trying to, in a sense, I guess, bankrupt companies or whatever for being involved in this. So it's always about money, I guess, in these regards, huh? Like they say usually, follow the money, and it's actually true for the drone laws and stuff too. And let's just say like a lobbyist, where There's some people on a surface level where it looks like they say, oh, they're on your side, they're trying to be helpful and so forth. But when you really look into it, you'll find, for example, things like, hey, wait a minute, isn't this like your husband or wife that's actually part of this, that actually encourages these over-the-top regulations and all that? It's almost like what I read in political stories, for example, where the politicians themselves might not be involved in the business in general, and that's legally true. And so on a surface level, they're like, I'm fighting for you and so forth. But then the person they're married to is actually, let's just say, the CEO of whatever company it is that benefits from those rules and so forth. Like, it's like a complete conflict of interest. I'm always surprised when people don't put two and two together like that. To me, it's always fascinating to observe to see who is able to spot that. All right, see you guys later.